So last time we were doing EOQ, and I had given you guys a tutorial to attempt at home, but I suggest that we, for the sake of the lack of attendance today, and because of the fact that we obviously going to be recorded, that we just start a completely new chapter. Okay, it's a fairly simple chapter. It's chapter 7. So today we're going to be looking at the shipping agents. So you guys are doing logistics, shipping and logistics. So some of you are basically going to be working as ship agents, probably. Okay, and also this is part of your syllabus. So you basically in Logistics 201, you basically need to understand the duties of ship agents, as in terms of who are they, what do they do, what are their roles or duties, and so forth. Okay, so what are ship agents? Have you guys ever heard of ship agents before? Anyone? No, it's not the same. Yeah.
So you think that in contact with the shipping line?
Yes. So ship agents basically are those are the people that are appointed by the by the shipping lines or by the captains, by the ship owners. Okay, to be the representatives of the ship owners in ports. So because obviously ship owners are usually very busy, they own ships, but they don't quite really have time to be at the terminal physically and ensure that their ships are being run, as they're supposed to be on a daily basis. So what they do is they appoint people or they appoint personnel that will be responsible for, or that will represent them at the terminal when their ships are there. Okay, so those are the ship agents. Okay, so the objectives of this particular lecture are as follows. The data examination of the modern agent's role, the different services required and provided, the core commercial skills, the legal issues for agents, and the latest contemporary issues in the sector. Okay, so as I said earlier on, you're going to be looking at the ship agents, as to who are they, what do they do, and so forth. Okay, and so obviously ships, when ships come into ports, they need to be taken care of. They need to be looked after. Okay, the crew in ships needs to have people or someone that they can communicate to if they are in need of anything whilst the ship is in port. So we're going to look at all of those different activities that are performed by agents and more. So producers, so in shipping you've got producers and traders. Produce, load the goods. So obviously you do know that in shipping we have different parties involved. We have sellers, buyers, people in the middle. You've got insurance people. You've got people that own cargo. Okay, those are sellers. And people that buy cargo, those are buyers, consigners, consignees. Okay, so produce, load the goods, transport, unload the goods, sell and change. Buy, yes. Sorry. Oh, the register. Okay. So you've got a consignee. So a consignee is somebody that buys the goods. Okay, that would be a recipient, somebody who receives goods from the seller. Okay. Now, the specialization of agents. The ship agent is defined in the IMO Convention, effective January 2018. Thus, the party representing the ship owners and or charterers in ports. Okay, I have alluded to the fact that agents are the representatives of the owners in ports. They also do represent the charterers. Okay, what is a charterer? Anyone? Yes. Bakol. Sorry? Yes, a charterer is someone that hires the ship. Okay, so that person will be known as a charterer. So if you, for an example, you have a business you are being given this huge business of transporting hundreds and thousands of tons of coal from, say, South Africa to Japan, okay, but you don't have a ship that you own. Basically, what you would most likely do is you're going to go to the ship owners and charter a vessel or hire a vessel for you to be able to transport that particular coal from South Africa to Japan. So charterers are people that actually go out there and hire vessels. Now the agent is responsible to the principal for arranging together with the ports, the berth, all relevant ports and husbandry services, okay? So agents perform duties that are known as husbandry duties or services. Husbandry. Okay. So all of these services are known as husbandry, or they are categorized in one term called husbandry services. Okay. And there's also they obviously perform various activities on behalf of the ship owners. Okay. So once the ship comes in, the captain of the ship would obviously be in need of different services. Like for an example, we do know that in the South African ports, how many ports do you have in South Africa again? How many seaports do you have in South Africa? Sorry? 8, right? So each and every South African port, for each and every ship that calls in any of the 8 South African ports needs to have a marine pilot on board when either when leaving or coming into the ports or coming to ports. Okay. So one of the things that the ship agent will then arrange for the ship is what? So the agent will arrange what? Pilotage. Ne? Okay. And what are the other services do you think the agent will have to arrange on behalf of the ship, either when leaving or coming into port? Yes. Yes, the agent will have to arrange tugs, okay, for the ship. Or tugboats, sorry. What else? So these services are compulsory in all the 8 South African seaports. So for every ship that calls any of the 8 South African seaports must adhere to or comply to the regulations of having to have a pilotage on board, and also have a tug or tugs that are going to assist the ship either when leaving or coming into port. Okay, so you guys, have you seen the tugboats? I can't remember exactly if I've shown you the tugboats before, but you have seen them. So these are the duties that are performed by the ship agents. So, well, amongst many other duties that are performed by agents is to arrange for pilotage and also arrange tugboats for the ship. Okay, so what other duties or what other services would agents arrange for ships, either when coming into ports or leaving the ports, apart from these 2? Can you think of any other more services that will have to be arranged by agents? Yes. Stevedores. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Are the agents also responsible for arranging stevedores for the ship? Can anyone answer that or attempt to answer that? Stevedores. So what are stevedores to begin with? Would you like to maybe share with the classes what stevedores are? So what are stevedores? Yes, they are basically involved with the physical loading and unloading of the ship. Okay, those are stevedores. They are basically hands-on, making sure that the cargo on board the ship is loaded appropriately. Okay, they would also do the lashing and the sealing of the containers, etc. Okay, so are the agents also going to be responsible for arranging the stevedores? Yes or no? Yes, Zam. Why?
stevedores, I think they come.
Oh yeah, they're provided by the terminal itself. Yeah, okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So ship agents do not quite really get involved with the arranging of the stevedores, but some agents do also get involved in making sure that like enough stevedores are available. But in some instances, there are other instances where the agents are not really going to get involved in arranging the stevedores. So, Bokolo, you wanted to say something? Did you have a question or a suggestion or a statement? Oh, you wanted to give an answer? Oh, yes. Okay. So, what other services would agents have to arrange for ships? We have already spoken about the pilotage and the tax. What else? So for each and every vessel that comes into ports, that vessel has to be cleared in, okay? So that ship must be cleared via customs, okay? So the agent will have to actually go to customs, physically submit the documents, declaring the ship or that specific vessel that's going to be coming in at a certain time, okay? So that is called clearing in. So the ship, the agent will arrange for, it's called inwards clearance of the ship. Okay, so if you've been to Victoria Embankment, okay, so I don't know whether you guys have been to Victoria Embankment. It's just a road along the harbour there. If you drive towards the beach, okay, using the Victoria Embankment, just across the MSC building, there's a huge building there. I think that's written Customs Exercise. Have you guys seen that building before? So basically, that building, that's where you find the customs officials. Okay, so one of the reasons why the MSC building is there, they strategically located it there so that it will be relatively closer to customs. Okay, so that if the ship comes into port, the agent will then prepare the customs documents, take them to across the road to Customs and Exercise building. That's where the customs officials are. Okay, just earlier on today, I wanted to upload this video and show it to you guys. Just an hour ago, I was at the port. Okay, an hour or so ago, I was at the port, and as I was driving in, I was at the Durban port, Pier 1. So as I was driving in at the entrance, I saw this huge building written SARS. Okay. Okay, so you guys know what SARS is, what SARS stands for. So it's an acronym for South African Revenue Services. Or what do? They collect tax. Okay, so every cargo that comes to the South African shores has to be taxed. Okay, although there's a tax that is imposed by SARS to every cargo that comes into South Africa or that comes into ports. Okay, so customs basically, so that tax is basically charged by the government department, which is called customs. Do you understand? So customs basically, in the language of shipping, are also known as SARS. That's basically why that building is there, because they ensure that every or all the goods that come in are being charged what you call tax, okay, or customs dues. Do you understand? And I think I remember I did speak to you a little bit about why is it that the government does not charge tax or do not charge tax to goods that are leaving the country as opposed to goods that are coming into the country. Do you remember discussing that? So what's the reason? Why is government only imposing tax to goods that are leaving the country? To goods that are coming into the country, but not to goods that are leaving the country? Yes,
supported the economy of South Africa, so then they charge tax.
yes, because remember the government is also trying to market the locally produced products. Okay, we're trying to export as many products as possible to other countries of the world. Okay, so we're trying to get our currency to leave the country so that it also gains a bit of strength when compared to other currencies that are relatively strong. And our currency can only gain that sort of strength if we're doing a lot of exports as opposed to bringing in a lot of stuff from outside. Yes, we are not going to have everything as the country. We are going to need items or products that are coming from other countries. Okay, we cannot possibly have everything in South Africa that we need. I think that's almost impossible. Well, it is possible, but we are obviously not in that position of having everything. So we need to exchange or engage in trade with other countries. So we give other countries what we have, and they also give us what they have. Okay, so we're exchanging. So have you guys heard the saying that goes, local is lekker? So proudly South African. You must have seen items written or branded proudly South African, because we pride ourselves with the local brand. Okay, and that's what the government is encouraging as well. That companies should also export to other countries, sell our locally made products to countries outside the world. So hence, as you correctly mentioned, the government is not so much encouraging imports, but very much encouraging exports. So now coming back to this, the ship now will have to arrange, the agent will have to arrange the inwards clearance on behalf of the ship. Okay, the ship comes in. So before the ship comes in, the agent must have already submitted the customs clearance to the customs officials building to say, I've got a ship that's sitting outside or that's coming in 2 or 3 days' time. It's going to be it's going to be carrying so much cargo on board. The name of the ship will be also indicated on the document, and also other information. Okay, and there's going to be cargo, and the number of the quantity of the cargo also will be declared on that particular customs document. Okay, so this arrangement is also done by the ship agent. Okay, and there's also one thing that's also very important that the agent must arrange before the ship comes into ports. The agent must arrange the port health certificates for the ship. Okay. Sorry, it's... Okay, so basically, the agent will also send an application for a port health certificate. So basically, the application it's a very quick application. The agent just prepares the port health documents and sends them to TNPA. Okay, to say I've got so much crew members, X number of crew members on board, and none of them is sick. Okay, so if anyone is declared sick on board the ship before it enters the port, what's going to happen to the ship? Do you think the ship is going to be granted a clean bill of health? So yeah, that's the term I was looking for. So the agent would apply for a clean bill of health. Okay, or a pulse health certificate, basically, to say everyone on board is free of any contagious diseases. Do you understand? So before the ship comes into ports, the agent must apply for a clean bill of health certificate. Okay, to say all the crew members that are in the ship are free of any diseases that are contagious. Okay, so a contagious disease is a type of disease that can be easily spread amongst people, okay, especially if they're in close proximity with each other. Okay, like for instance, your flu, your coronavirus is very much contagious because the minute you get closer to someone that has corona, chances are you can also easily contract it, okay? So the agent must apply for a clean bill of health before the ship comes into port, and if there's no one found to be having any sort of disease on board, then the ship will be granted a clean bill of health, okay, green lights. Then, in that case, then the ship can be allowed to come into port. But there's also, this is not the whole, or all, this is not the, all the arrangements that the agent must do. There's also one very important thing that unless the ship is granted, it cannot be allowed to enter any South African port. That's the ISPS clearance. Okay, so what's, yes?
The
Bill of health, yes.
let's say maybe one crew member is sick.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
We will need to stay in the sea.
Okay, I think that's a good question. So say now one crew member is found to have any sort of disease that is considered contagious. So basically what would normally happen is maybe the ship might be allowed to, well, will probably be allowed to come into ports. In most cases, it will not be allowed to come. It will just be left outside to quarantine, okay, for a certain number of days. But in some instances, they would allow the ship to come into port, but the crew members are not going to be allowed to leave the ship, for a certain number of days. Why? So that period would be known as what? Sorry? So that duration, like that sort of duration during, like when the crew members are not allowed to leave the ship is called what? If the port officials are saying, your ship, Captain so-and-so, is going to come on the berth, but none of the crew members are allowed to leave the ship for 6 days. So what do you call that 6-day period? Sorry? Anyone? Yes, I think you're saying the answer, but you're just not confident. Yes, it's called quarantine. So the ship will be in quarantine for 6 days. Okay. So in that particular situation, then the ship will then be asked to just not allow anyone on board the ship to leave, okay, for X number of days. So that period is called a quarantine period. Okay, I'll come back to you, Wakon. Quarantine. So it's quarantine period. Yes, Bakol, you wanted to say something? Yes. No, only the crew members. Well, obviously, when if the ship happens to be brought into port while someone is found to be having any contagious disease, then the pilots would obviously, they will try as much as possible to isolate whoever that is found to have that particular disease from the pilots, so that the pilot performs his or her duty safely. Okay. Yeah, but in most instances, they do not allow the ship to come into port. They will just have it to drop anchor outside at the outer anchorage, okay, to quarantine there before it can be allowed into port. Okay, and in that very rare moment where even if someone is found to have any disease on board, but they still send the pilots to actually come and bring the ship inside. In instances, that ship will be kept outside. It's the outside anchorage. Okay. So if the ship is outside, sitting outside, as you might have already seen before, ships sitting outside, it's the outside anchorage by Ntshangase. Have you guys been to Ntshangase? You must have. Have you noticed ships that are just, outside there by the Ntshangase beach, not moving? So those ships, some of those ships would be in quarantine, some of them would be just outside waiting to do what? Waiting to come into port. So there are instances where maybe the port does not really have space for your ship to come in at that particular point in time. So what would normally happen is then the port will ask your ship to just wait outside at the outside anchorage up until obviously the berth is open for the ship to come in. Okay. So now coming back to the clean bill of health, if the crew members on board, one of the crew members on board are found to have any disease, then the ship would be asked to sit outside for a certain period, which is called a quarantine period. Okay. So in the ISPS now, this is an acronym for the International Ship. Okay, I need to write it down. So it's an acronym for International Ship Facility Security Code. Yeah, is it International Ship Ports Facility Security Code? That's your ISPS. So what is ISPS? Okay, but I'll just need to double check. I'm not quite sure now whether there's a P in the middle. I'll double check and come back to you. I think it's International Ship Port Facility and Security Code. Yes, I think there is a P. Yeah, a port here, sorry. It's International Ship Port Facility Security Code. That's your ISPS. So what is ISPS basically? So ISPS, that's one of the concerns that the ports regulators or the port regulator have is the security issues around the ports or in and around ports. Okay, so this is the security aspects now that is being covered at the ports. So where now, you guys must have seen what happened in the US. There's an incident called 9/11. Okay, do you remember that incident? That's 9/11 stands for, that's September 2000 and, sorry? Is it the 11th of September? Yes, sorry, yes, it's the 11th of September, yes, you're correct. So that in that particular incident, obviously the US was invaded by aircrafts and so forth. So the security of the US was compromised to some degree. Okay. So now what happens in South Africa as well is, now because of such instances such as those, now the South African government is also trying to reinforce the security aspects of the ports. Okay. Because the ports are the national assets. They are our national pride. We are making money in South Africa because of our ports, of our seaports. Companies in South Africa are also benefiting because of the national seaports. Okay, logistics companies are benefiting because of the national seaports. So we also need to protect our national seaports. So every vessel that comes or that is about to come or call any of the South African seaports must apply for ISPS clearance at least 96 hours prior to arriving at any of the South African seaports. Do you understand? Every commercial vessel that is going to call in any of the South African seaports must apply for ISPS clearance at least 96 hours before the ship comes into the ports. Do you understand? And unless the ship does that, it will unfortunately not be granted access to the port. Okay, so it becomes the duty of the ship agent to remind the ship captain that they must make sure that they apply for ISPS at least 96 hours prior to the ship's arrival at the port. Do you understand? I remember I was in a situation where, when I used to work for one of the shipping companies before, way back, I was being trained as a ship agent. And one of my duties was to obviously send out reminders to the ship captains. I would obviously have a list of vessels that are going to be calling the Durban ports in the next week or two, or in the next hour, in the next month. So I would have to then make sure that for all ships that are going to be calling in the next week, do apply for ISPS. So my duty was to also remind the captains of those vessels to apply for ISPS clearance prior to arrival. So I remember, okay, I'll come to you. So I remember I had forgotten to remind one of the ship captains. I think that ship was due to arrive, I think, in 2 days' time, which was obviously a bit late. Not even a bit late, it was late for the ship to then apply for ISPS 2 days before. Because the rule says the ship must apply how long before? 96 hours, which is how many days? That's 4 days. And I was in big trouble, okay? Because the captain sent an email back to the office saying, to the operations manager at that time that I was reporting to, saying, boss, you did not remind me to apply for the ISPS. Then my boss came back to me and said to me, but this is your duty as an agent, to remind the captain of the ship to apply for ISPS. Then because of that, I was obviously in trouble. But luckily, I was not given a warning, but I should have been given a warning. Some agents are even dismissed immediately because it becomes a huge inconvenience for the company. Okay, in what way? Number one, the ship is supposed to come into port and is now denied access because of such a mistake. What would be the detriments of that to the company? How is that going to affect the company? You're losing money because now remember the ship is supposed to come into port. The berth would have already been booked for the ship to come in. Containers have to be offloaded for clients. The clients are waiting for containers, but the ship is denied access and is sitting outside. So it becomes a huge problem, you know. So hence it becomes a bit of a serious issue for shipping companies. That's why it is imperative for agents to make sure that they remind shipping companies, or ships, to actually apply for ISPS clearances. Yes?
So they just apply for clearance. There's no physical check, physically checking if there's no screening for bonds or whatever.
No. They basically just apply. They send an application form.
Yeah, then what's the point?
Yeah, well, I suppose, okay, I don't, obviously, when I was working as an agent, I remember that the captain of the ship, the only thing that the captain of the ship has to do is to send the application via email to Transnet or TNPA, okay? And the Transnet would obviously, before the ship arrives, so Transnet would already have details of the ship. They would already know as to what's the name of the ship, how many crew members on board, what nationalities are they, and so the actual ISPS clearance has all that detailed information with regards to the nationalities of the crew members, their names, surnames, the type of cargo that is on board the ship. Okay, the application itself will declare the type of cargo, because, you know, if, let's say for instance, if it's, you know, dangerous cargo, then they will then decide whether or not to allow the ship to come in, or allow it or not allow it to come in. Okay, I think they only then They only basically look at the application itself, scrutinize the type of cargo that's on board, and then decide whether they're allowing it or not. But obviously, if the cargo is a bit suspicious, as per the description on the application itself, then they'd obviously do further steps to investigate further whether it would be safer to bring the ship in or not. Okay. But obviously, imagine now if they were to come on board each and every vessel to open containers and check as to whether the cargo here is safe or not. Okay, so it becomes a matter of like good or morality from the side of the ship to say, this is the cargo that you have on board, and they will fully describe the cargo on board to say, okay, this is the cargo, this is the type of cargo that we carry. That will be declared on the actual ISPS clearance. So, yeah, so the ship will then be granted ISPS clearance based on that. Okay, then the ship will be allowed to come into port. Yes, Zan. No, it's fine. There's no stupid question. Remember, you are here to learn, so you must ask us any question that you might have in your mind.
Yes, with the ISPS clearance, does it focus on the cargo we are carrying only, or also the pirates, which is the pirate side?
Yeah, I remember the pirates. I remember not so long ago, I'd watched a video. I think if my memory serves me well, must have been on YouTube, where there was a ship, like a very, very big container vessel from one of the African countries that had called Brazil. And when it arrived in Brazil, the authorities in ports discovered, I think, about 4 stowaways. You guys know what stowaways are? Stowaways. Okay. So these are the people that will board the ship illegally. They are known as stowaways. So they'll basically just hide maybe somewhere underneath the ship on the radar or just somewhere. So they basically come and illegally board the ship because they just basically want to escape their own countries of origin for whatever reason. Okay. So coming back to your question, the ship captain wouldn't know whether there are stowaways on board the ship or not. Okay. So that cannot obviously be declared on the actual application. Okay. So because the ship the captain of the ship wouldn't even allow the ship to sail if they know very well that there are stowaways on board the ship. Okay. So, but it does happen now when the ship is sailing with people that are hidden or that are hiding somewhere underneath the ship or any sort of confined spaces on board the ship. And some do get caught, some fortunately, I don't know if fortunately is the right word to use, do not get caught. But those ones specifically that I saw on the news not so long ago were caught in Brazil from one of the African countries. Okay. So the agent must remind the ship to apply for the ISPS clearance. Okay. So these are amongst some the other duties that the ship agents will have to perform for every vessel that comes in or calls to any of the South African seaports. Yes, ports around the world, some ports around the world are not quite stringent with regards to, having ships applying for ISPS whenever they call into port. But in South Africa specifically, this is non-negotiable. Every vessel that calls any of the South African seaports must apply for ISPS clearance. It's a no-brainer. It's non-negotiable. Okay. Now, so all of these duties are known as the husbandry duties for agents. Okay. Why do you think they call husbandry duties? You remember why the ship is called a she? Why is the ship is being referred to as a she in the first place? Now, when we're referring to ships, we're referring to them as she. Why? Why do you think is that? Have you guys not seen or heard anything in relation to that as to why ships are being referred to as she? It could have been referred to as a he, okay, as males. Sorry? Oh, sorry, yes? So he's saying because women are expensive. I don't know, you guys agree, women, do you agree with that? Okay, yes, sorry, you also had something to say?
Yeah, I was saying
The Shaban.
maintenance ships are heavy.
Yes, because also ships are heavy maintenance. I think that's correct, I agree with you. But now, coming back to his point, ladies, are you expensive? Is that true? Is it expensive to maintain you? Okay. So so boys, you heard it yourselves. If you wanna get yourself a lady one day to marry, you must brace yourself with having to be strong financially because apparently you guys are expensive. So ships are being referred to as a she simply because yes, they have maintenance. They need to be looked after. They have to be protected. So as a ship agent, you perform these husbandry duties as in husbandry. No, as a husband looking after his wife, which is a she. Do you understand? So each time you refer to a ship as an agent, you're not going to say, I'm making an example, MSC Sinfonia just came into port. You're going to say she came into port. Okay. Usually they'll use that language. Okay. They refer to her as she. Okay. Because usually these are the kind of duties that are performed to look after a ship, which is a she. Hence, they're being referred to as husbandry services. Now, coming back to our slides, tending to the, okay, so one of the things that an agent will arrange also is the berth. Okay, now remember, the number of berths at the ports are limited, okay? And there's a lot of ships that call into ports on a daily basis. So you cannot possibly accommodate all vessels in the ports at once, okay? I know, for instance, that the Durban Container Terminal, for an example, okay, Durban Container Terminal is known as DCT, okay? DCT is Durban Container Terminal. So DCT is divided into two. There's DCT Pure 1 and there's DCT Pure 2. Okay, so in Pure 1, I know in Pure 2, there's N200s and 202, 204, etc. In Pure 1, I think there's N107, 107, and there's 106, and I think there's 105 as well, if I'm not mistaken. So these are the berths allocation. So this N107 is a berth. That's what the ship berth, okay? So they are being labeled as N something, okay? Like there's N, under Pure 1, there's N107, N106, and N105. And Pure 2, there's N200, 202, and 204, okay? So in other words, if you've got 3 berths here and you've got 3 berths here, then you can have 6 ships at the DCT in one go. Do you understand? Can't quite remember exactly how many berths are there at PO2, but there are more than 3. That I know for a fact. And at PO1, I think there's only 3 of them, if not 4 now. But as you do know, that the ship is the ports, there are talks now that the ports is going to be under construction for the purposes of extending it. Okay, I think that particular operation is started, if I'm not mistaken. So you cannot possibly accommodate 10 or 12. Okay, let's say if there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 berths, it means you can accommodate 6 ships at DCT. Okay, so if you have 10 vessels, container vessels, where are you going to put 10 container vessels? Because you can only put how many? 6. So what's going to happen to the other 4? They're going to have to wait outside, okay, until there's an opening. So the agent will have to arrange a berth for the ship prior to the ship's arrival at the port. And remember, a berth is not a free service. If you bring a ship alongside on the berth, the ship is being charged a berthing fee for each and every day that the ship is on the berth. Okay, the ship is going to be there for 5 days. For an example, maybe Transnet charges 8,000 rands per day per ship on the berth. If the ship is going to be there for 8 days, then it means how much is the ship going to pay? 8,000 times 8. Do you understand? That's why ship owners are not happy or are not particularly happy when their ships are in port, but they are only happy when their ships are at sea. Because vessels make money when they are at sea sailing as opposed to when they are on the berth doing cargo operations. Because on the berth, the owner of the ship would have incurred monies for all of these services. Would have paid for a berth, would have paid for the pilotage, would have paid for the mooring gangs, and etc., etc. And I think I've summarized this whole lecture just with this explanation. So basically, this is what this lesson is all about. It's about the agents and their duties. Now, duties of the agent. Oh, sorry. There's also one official or government official that I forgot to mention here. That's the ship would also have to adhere to its regulations before it comes into port, or adhere to its rules. It's called the Immigration Office. Okay, so the ship would also have to apply for, access. Would have to apply for a permission from the Immigration Office in relation to whether, like everyone on board the ship is legally there. There's no one who's not supposed to be on the ship, but is there anyway, in any case. Okay. So, for instance, as an agent, you're gonna have to submit the names of the crew members on board, their nationalities, and etc. Okay. I think what's most important is their nationalities and their names. I think their age as well, and their gender. Okay. So now, sometimes the immigration officials will come on board randomly or unexpectedly, and then to check against his list as to whether so and so, I see crew member Miss Shabani is on board on my list, okay, or is not on board. Her name is not on my list, but I see her name on the list on board the ship. Then obviously that will have to be investigated to check whether she is there on board the ship legally. Okay, hence now you have the immigration officials to check that. So this is also arranged by the agents. Now, duties of the agent or delegated authority as agents only. So duties of the agent authority at the time of initial appointment. Remember the principal is the owner of the ship. So as an agent, you are the representative of the principal, okay? Because remember, the principal is not possibly going to be there all the time to ensure that everything is operational as it's supposed to be. Ship owners usually don't have that kind of time. Hence, they delegate ship agents to be the ones that are going to be their eyes and ears on the ground. Now, at the time of initial appointment, the principal will issue instructions to the agent, detailing the services required and the limits of delegated authority. Within the limits of that authority, the agent is entitled to enter into agreements or contracts, disperse funds, and make other arrangements that may bind the principal or incur cost on their behalf. Okay. So the agent, obviously, on the behalf of the principal, may enter into agreements or contracts on behalf of principals when they are acting on their behalf at the ports, disburse funds, for an example, what is it that the ships are going to have to pay for? What services are going to be charged here that are charged a fee, a certain fee? What do you think are the services, or what do you think are the services that ships will have to pay for when they come into port? Anyone? Yes. Okay, bunkering, yes. So in case the ship requires bunkers, okay, the ship has run out of fuel, the agent is also going to, I think that also qualifies to be mentioned here, arrange for bunkering. And also maybe arrange for crew change. Okay, sorry, my writing is a bit skewed. Okay, so are we still together, guys? So the agent can obviously disperse those funds to actually to buy fuel on behalf of the principal, okay, and make other arrangements that may bind the principal or incur cost on their behalf. So a simple service like marine pilotage as well. So once that service has been rendered by the marine pilots, then the Transnet National Ports Authority is going to issue out an account statement, obviously reflecting all the cost that would have been incurred by the vessel when either coming in or leaving the port. Okay, so those costs would obviously be incurred by the ship, and the disbursement of those costs or of those funds can be done by the agents on behalf of the ship owners. Now, as agents only, now the agents must, or it is important that agents do indicate that they are acting on behalf of their principals. Okay, so in often cases, this is what is going to be clearly visible on the documents, like more especially if the agent has been or has entered into a contract on behalf of the ship owner and is doing whatever activity or is performing that particular activity on behalf of the ship owner, but we also have to specify or stipulate that as agents only because they are acting on behalf of the ship owner. If the agent has not exceeded the delegated authority granted by the principal agrees to assume the obligations and to indemnify the agent for any cost resulting from any contracts or arrangements entered into by the agent on the principal's behalf. So the principal would often indemnify. So in other words, the principal would often protect the agent, or would often basically free the agent from any possible maybe claims or trouble that might actually come out of that, or that might come after an activity that would have been performed by the agent on behalf of the principal. So to indemnify someone is to free them from any obligation, basically, okay, or free them from any responsibility. Do you understand? So the principal, in case the agent has not exceeded the delegated authority granted by the principal agrees to assume the obligations, okay. So the principal will then assume the obligations and indemnify the agent for any cost resulting from any contracts or arrangements that would have been entered into by the agent on behalf of the principal. The agent is entitled to benefit from the protections available to it under the above agreement, but in order to do so must describe itself as a correspondence written, verbal, and otherwise as agents only. That's another way in which agents would protect themselves where they would obviously declare or basically indicates clearly that they are acting as agents only or on behalf of their principal. So in practice, sorry, what time is it now? Anybody has got a watch? 1:05. Okay. So in practice, agent is any person or company that carries out the functions of an agent, irrespective of whether they are in business as a ship agent or they perform such functions as an Ntshangase or in conjunction with or other activities such as ship owning, operating, providing cargo handling or similar. Okay. So some shipping companies have their own inward agent services that they provide for themselves. Some companies outsource agents or agents services. So in other words, they actually go and get an independent company that provides agent services to actually be the one that is going to come and perform agent services on behalf of the company. So some companies like MSC, I remember because I used to work for them. At that time, I think they still do, even at this point. They have their own inwards agents that they've employed themselves that works specifically for MSC. Some companies, like for instance, I know there's this one shipping or ship agency that is called Lindani Shipping. So Lindani Shipping is independent. They provide agency services to various shipping companies that are out there in the field. Yes, did you have a question? Yeah, there are ports also, yeah, ports do also have their own port agents, but those port agents duties are slightly different from the ones that are performed by ship agents. So port agents would normally be the representatives of maybe other parties, not specifically on behalf of the ship owners. So your question is?
Yeah, I was asking with the arrangement for crew change.
Oh yes.
Yes. Since you talk about the ship agents that in the ports which are outsourced and the ones that come together with the ports, but then I think you answered my question.
Yeah, no,
that has nothing to do with the.
No, the ship agents also do arrange for crew changes as well. I mean, those are the ones that arrange crew changes. Like, for instance, there's a ship that comes into ports. Say, Mr. Jula is a crew member on board, and his contract has just expired, so he needs to fly home. He's from Britain in England. Okay, but his contract expires whilst he's here in South Africa. So your duty as a ship agent would be to make sure that his flights are booked back, for him to fly back home. He's got a hotel if he needs to stay in a hotel before his flights and so forth. He's going to have to arrange transport to take him to the hotel and ultimately take him to the port for him to fly home. As an agent, we are going to arrange that as a ship agent. So that's being one of the duties that are performed by the ship agent. So now, for NAPSA makes no distinction between those providing agency services as their main business activity or as a part of a portfolio of marine-related services. Okay, so for NAPSA, that's basically an organization that looks after the well-being of the ship agents. Okay, so ship agents, duties and their rights and etc. are clearly stipulated under FONAPSA. Okay, so FONAPSA would clearly stipulate as to what is it exactly that is expected of the ship agents and how are they supposed to be treated. Okay, what are their rights and so on and so forth. Now, acting as the local representative of the principal, the agent provides local knowledge and expertise and ensures that the principal's requirements are performed with the utmost efficiency and dispatch. Accordingly, the agent requires to be fully conversant with all the appropriate regulations and requirements relating to the ports, area or sector in which they operate, to have a wide range of relevant contacts and be sufficiently well established and founded to be able to provide the level of service and support the need of the principal. So usually agents would be personnel that would be well vested, okay, or would be the type of people that will normally be well aware of of the surroundings of that particular port. Okay, they would be familiar, in other words. Say, for an example, I'm appointing you as an agent of my ship, okay, to work at the Durban port. As an agent that's going to be working at the Durban port, you are then going to have to be well familiar with the Durban ports, okay? In terms of how are things going or operating at the ports, you are familiar with the rules and regulations that apply to ships arriving and leaving Durban ports, and you are familiar with basically even the geographic aspects of the port itself, okay? Because as an agent, you need to know as to where to get hold of certain peoples. For an example, the ship now runs out of bunkers. If you don't know where to find bunkers in Durban ports as an agent, what are you going to do? Okay, that's why you need to be familiar with the surroundings of the port. Also, as an agent, now the ship comes into port and the captain tells you that they are in need of fresh water, okay, or they are in need of food or stores. How do you know? What's the name of the people that provide stores and food to ships? What are they known as? The personnel or organizations that would provide stores and food to vessels. That's agents would normally contact if the ship runs out of stores or food. What are they known as? What do you call those people that provide food to ships? Anyone? Have you ever heard of them before? No. So where do you think crew members get their food from? If they run out of food on board, what do they do? Yeah, they have the galley, which is the kitchen, right? So they need to cook and so forth. So if the ship comes into port and the captain of the ship realizes that suddenly now the ship is running out of food, who are the people that the captain of the ship is going to contact to get food provided for the ship? Those people are called ship chandlers. Okay, ship chandlers. Okay, these people supply stores and food to ships. So they are called ship chandlers. So they, you might have driven somewhere around Umbilo, towards that direction. I have seen a couple of ship chandling companies situated in and around that area. Okay, so when you happen to drive maybe along Sydney Road towards Umbilo, Emobeni, or what's this other area after Umbilo? What is it called? Can't remember the name of that place. But in and around that vicinity, I have seen a couple of ship chandlers or companies that are ship chandlers. Okay, so they are also there to provide food for ships. So So I was basically explaining this part of the slide. That's the ship agent. So in summary, this slide is basically saying, as an agent, you need to perform your duties at your utmost, best level possible, and do the best you can in ensuring that you do an appropriate job, and you also need to adhere to all the rules and regulations if you are the ship agent, okay? Because you do not want to break any law as an agent in ports. You need to adhere to them. Now, so in summary, who are they? The agent, the ship agent. Ship owners and charterers cannot be present at every port their ship docks at, or watch over every deal secured for employment. There simply isn't enough time if they want to build their business. Okay, you already know that. Now, a ship agent is employed to represent the interest of either the ship owner, the ship's operator, or the cargo owner, consignee. Okay, so all of these parties can also appoint their own agents to represent them. Now, ship owner can have his or her own agent, cargo owner can have his or her own agent, and the ship operator also can appoint their own agents. Now, but as you would expect, they also do not want to wash their hands off the day-to-day operations of these multi-million-dollar assets. Because remember, as a ship owner, you're running, if you're owning a ship, you're owning something that is worth, a couple of millions. So you wouldn't want to get your hands completely off everything that's basically happening with that particular assets. So you are here and there are going to get involved, especially when it comes to deals that are worth, maybe serious money. Now, the middle ground comes in the form of a ship's agent, a person or a firm who transacts all business on behalf and under the direction of a ship owner or a charterer. Now, what do agents do? I think we have spoken about that at great length. So you pretty much know exactly what agents do. Not unless anyone would like to ask any question with regards to the duties that are performed by agents. Do you have any questions? Usually, the length, yes. Yeah, well, it depends. I think they enter into different employment contracts. Okay, so their contracts differ as per that particular employer. So, like, say for instance, if you are being employed by the company X, their regulation is we only give 6 months contracts. Okay, so now it means that if you are entering into a 6 months contract as a crew member, then you are going to work for 6 months. Now, if your 6 months starts today is the 23rd of September. So today you're joining the ship, and your contract ends in 6 months' time, which is going to be September, October, November, December, 23rd of February. 23rd of Feb. Then the 23rd of Feb, your contract ends. Then if the 23rd of Feb, you are not in South Africa, and South Africa is your home, maybe you are in Singapore, then on that day, your contract ends, then you will need to be repatriated back to your own country of origin. Okay, so the agent then is going to arrange for that. But other companies offer contracts of like pay voyage, as you correctly mentioned, to say, we're only going to give you a contract for this specific voyage. Maybe the ship is going to be embarking on a voyage from South Africa to China, which is going to be more or less about 2 to 3 weeks. Then as soon as that voyage ends, then your contract ends. Okay. So the type of employment with the crew members differs from company to company. Yes.
So the agent will deal with paying agents, putting their contracts together, they will deal with
the agents. No. The paying of the crew wages, that's done by the other departments of the shipping company. So agents are not involved with the payment of the crew wages. That's not being done by agents. No. So agents only do these only type of activities. I mean, or would only arrange for these type of services that we have spoken about. But when it comes to paying the crew wages, that's not being performed. That's not being done by the ship agents. Now, I wanted to say something else. Oh yes, I just remembered. Now there's something called, now what happens if the ship, if somebody, let's say, passes on board the ship. Let's say, for an example, you are the crew member on board and the ship is somewhere on high seas. Okay, and you fall ill and everything happens so fast and you just unfortunately pass on. Then what normally happens under such circumstances? Because I remember I mentioned the word repatriation. Because the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want you to understand the word repatriation. Repatriation. Okay. So to repatriate, in this context or in this scenario that I've just introduced to you, the corpse will then have to be repatriated. Okay, if the ship is in high seas, now the ship will have to divert. Okay, if the ship was heading to the Far East, if it was heading to maybe Singapore or in China, then the ship will have to divert to the nearest ports, so that the body of the deceased can then be flown back to his country of origin. Okay, that is called repatriation. Okay, same thing applies to the crew member. The crew member's contract has expired and the crew member is from Japan. But the contract expires whilst the crew member is in South Africa. So what's going to happen? The agent will have to arrange for the repatriation of the crew member. So to repatriate is to send the crew member back home. Do you understand? Do you have any questions? Any questions so far? No. Now, the agent must be familiar with all the appropriate regulations and requirements relating to the ports, area or sector in which they operate. I think I've already mentioned that. You remember we did touch on that. Have a wide range of relevant contacts and be sufficiently well established and founded to be able to provide the level of service and supports needed. Now, I think one thing that I perhaps did not mention about agents is that because they normally work now, remember ports are a 24-hour business. Ports do not sleep. They operate every day for 24 hours. There's no 8 to 4. Yes, there are people that work from 8 to maybe 5, and then there's going to be another shift coming in from 5 to 10 at night, and another shift coming from maybe 10 until morning. But in essence, or essentially, ports are a 24-hour business. They don't sleep. So how do you think now agents adapt to that sort of environment? Because ships come during any time of the day or night. Ships can come at 4 o'clock in the morning. Ships can come at 10 o'clock at night. Ships can come at 1 o'clock in the morning. But the most important thing is, in most scenarios, if you are assigned to look after a certain vessel as an agent, then you are then going to be expected to be physically there when the ship arrives. So if the ship comes at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're going to have to brave the weather if it's raining or very cold in winter. Unfortunately, abandon your warm blankets, take your car and drive off to the port at 2 o'clock in the morning. So you don't have a sort of 8 to 4 kind of schedule. So your working hours are basically that's crazy. So shipping companies, what they normally do is they provide a car allowance. Some provide airtime allowance, cell phone allowance, because basically you need a car to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to the port. Okay, you can't be driving your own car. Well, you'll be driving your own car, but you can't be using your own petrol as well. And a car allowance would mean that they are going to be paying for your own car installment, okay? Because that car, you are using that car to do the work of the company, okay? So they'll give you a petrol card. I'm not saying all companies do that, so don't get me wrong. Some do that. They give you a petrol card, a car allowance, what else? Cell phone allowance, airtime allowance. So your money, your salary becomes yours. You basically don't really pay for a lot of things, okay? Because you are working crazy hours. I remember when I was working for MSC, yes, that's basically what used to happen. But I was trained as an agent. I left before I was then qualified as a, like officially became a qualified agent because I'd undergone a training session for 12 months. But the senior agents that were working alongside me, they had car allowances, they had petrol allowances, cell phone allowance, airtime, everything. And on top of that, get their salaries. Okay, so it becomes nice from that point of view. But the work is obviously not as nice because you gotta work awkward working hours. Well, if you finish your diploma, then you can just apply to be a ship agent. Okay, that's it. So what would usually happen is once you finish your shipping and logistics diploma, then you're obviously gonna look for will. Okay, then you're gonna, if you get a will placement with a shipping company, a shipping line, then they will then decide whether they want to put you under the operations department or finance department or exports department or debt collectors department or container department. Okay, I was given my will experience under the operations department, which is the agents department. But obviously, if you specifically want to become an agent, then you must focus on applying for ship agents post, because they do advertise ship agents post specifically for those who want to become ship agents. Okay. Now, jobs they might be asked to perform include securing ship supplies, arranging crew changes. We've spoken about all of that. Arranging for maintenance and repairs, husbandry, berthing, customs documentation, and other formalities. Planning and coordinating, an agent's remits can be extremely varied, and often agents specialize in one field of expertise, the most common of which are liner agency and port agency. Although agents can be found in freight forwarding, haulage, and warehousing, agents' expertise allows them to advise on and handle all types of cargo. Okay, sorry, what time is it again? It's past. Okay, I think I'll try and finish at 20 past. At 22, at least. Now, the main types of ship agency appointment. Now, we've got different types of agents now. I think we did touch on the port agent a little bit. So, port agent organizes and coordinates the port call, acting on behalf of the owner or operator of the vessel. And so, port agents might be limited to, the type of duties that they would be performing. They might not really perform the wide scope of duties just as how the ship agent would do. Now, and the cargo or liner agent solicits cargo on behalf of the owner or operator, usually within a defined geographical area. Okay, so as a cargo owner, as a ship owner, you might have a ship, okay, but that does not necessarily guarantees you the cargo that you would want to transport from point A to point B. So as an owner, you might want to have someone that is going to be responsible for finding cargo on your behalf as a ship owner. Hence, the cargo owner, it says here, solicits cargo on behalf of the owner. So let's say for an example, again, you are the ship owner, you have the ship, you won the lottery or a jackpot of 61 million rands and you decide to buy a ship. But you have no idea where you're going to find cargo to transport using that ship. So you're going to appoint someone who's going to be known as a cargo agent. That person is going to be responsible for looking for cargo on your behalf. Now, owners and charterers agents act for another party that has an interest in the port call. The specific duties undertaken vary depending on the relationship between the parties. Okay. So you'd also, you'd have agents that are not necessarily the representatives of the ship owners, but they would represent other parties. Okay. So hence, the charterers act for another party that has an interest in the port call. Now, the specific duties undertaken vary depending on the relationship between those parties. Like, for an example, charterers, if you are representing a charterer, then it means you're looking after the interest of the charterer. As a charterer's agent, you would specifically be looking after the interest of the charterer because you are acting on behalf of the charterer. Do you understand? Now, others, as the principal may decide or require. Now, the Federation of National Association of Ship Brokers and Agents, that's what FONAPSA stands for, as having already explained to you that FONAPSAs look after the interest, they have the agents' best interest at heart. So they basically protect their rights and they make sure that their well-being is well looked after. And they also basically clearly stipulates the expectations and of the ship agents as well in return, because ship agents are also guided by certain regulations. They can't just do as they please. So FONAPSA clearly define their duties and responsibilities and or expectations. Now, a port agent attends to the owners and ship's business or husbandry port services such as repairs, bunkering, and assists the master with the organizing of the cargo handling. Husbandry agent, ship manager, husbandry agent attends to the non-cargo matters of the ship, its crew, repairs, provision and supplies. Okay, so as I said earlier on, the duties of the port agent might not be as wide as those of the husbandry or ship agent or ship manager. So port agents, in some instances, would be restricted to only performing duties such as maybe arranging repairs and bunkering and assist the master with the organizing of cargo handling only. Whereas now the ship agent duties may go as wide or as far as doing and all the other additional duties, which might include other things as well that are not stipulated here. Now, the cargo or liner agent operating primarily in the liner and the break bulk. Now, remember the difference between liner and liner trade and tramp service. What's the difference again? Yes, liner works on a fixed schedule, whereas tramp service is basically as in and when the business is available. So tramp is not really as a non-scheduled sort of service. Okay. Now the agent may also offer or provide inland transportation, customs clearance, and other related services, which is that's customs and forwarding agents. Now, the cargo agent may be independent and represent more than one principal, but is often tied to or is often subsidiary of one specific principal. So even these cargo agents, they also become a little bit, more specific as to who exactly do they work for. They might not represent only one principal, but they might even go as far as representing two or more principals. Okay, so basically cargo agents can also operate like that. So the cargo and liner agent, his other duties often include arranging for the goods to be brought alongside the ship, making customs entries, and paying any dues on the cargo. Okay, so I think this is pretty straightforward. Now, the essential services that are performed by the cargo and liner agents are as follows: transportation of goods to docks and arrangement of warehousing at ports, warehousing facilities before the goods are transported to docks, booking of shipping space or air freighting, and advise on relative cost excuse me, of sending goods by sea and air, arrangement for loading of goods on board, equipped with information on shipping lines and freights to different destinations and various charges payable by exporters, obtaining marine insurance policies, preparation and processing of shipping documents such as bills of ladings, dock receipts, export declarations, consular invoice, certificates of origin, etc., and forwarding banking collection papers. So now remember, I think chapter 4, if not 5, we touched or we looked at different documents that are used in shipping. And there are no, that's not foreign to you. So you know exactly all of these types of shipping documents. Now, the owners or charterers agent or other appointments, owners or charterers agent, depending on the circumstances of the port call, there may be more than one agent attending to the vessel. One party may decide that their best interest will be represented by appointing their own independent representative rather than using the primary nominated agent. The exact role and responsibilities of this agent, of the second agent, and indeed the title under which they operate will be determined on the case-by-case basis. So basically, this explains that, you know, the ship comes alongside, you might find that more than one agent would visit that ship, okay? Because there are different parties that would be interested in that vessel, okay? Parties such as the cargo owners, the cargo sailors, okay, obviously the insurance, the ship owner, etc. So, for an example, the cargo owners, it is well within their rights also to nominate their own agents to come and represent them when the ship is alongside doing cargo operations. So they would have the cargo owner's best interest at heart. And you'd find that there would also be the ship agent that would be visible also in and around that ship to be representing another party, which is the ship owner. Do you understand? So you might find that one ship would actually be attended to by different agents, obviously representing different parties involved. It might be 22 now. Okay, I will leave it there for today, unless, of course, you have any questions. You have any questions? Sorry? What? Oh, the register, sorry. Where's the register? Oh, by the way, I do have your scripts. Must I give them to you? Because I have already recorded your marks in the system. Did you see your marks? Have you checked your marks on portal? Okay. So I have your scripts. I can just bring them here so that you guys can collect them. Thank you. Let me just quickly go and collect your scripts then. I'll take them now. Sorry.